can't believe that I'm actually going to defend Rush and RO because I think it's really stupid. But, but kind of along with this conversation, I have to say that there's a time and a place to learn about other things and to have to teach other people about your culture or things that you know or things that people want to know about you, or you have to represent your whole race or your whole ethnicity. And so in some ways, like, to have a place to go home to is really important, you know? And I think if we're gonna say, you know, MIT is the bad guy in this conversation, then maybe what there could be more of is opportunities, more times and more places to have like interaction, to have people that want to talk about themselves and want to represent their whole race or whatever, so that they have opportunity to do that. But to kind of take away people's homes, you know, people's places where they don't have to explain themselves, where they know that if they say this or that, or if they like make this or that food, people aren't going to look at them, maybe not even condescend, but sort of exoticize them and say, what are you doing? Explain yourself. Like, who the hell wants to explain themselves, you know, all evening when you've been at school all day? Like, that's, so to have like a place to go home to, I think is really important. I still can't believe that I'm defending RO, but I mean, I think if it was a longer process, then I think you would be, I think people who think that if you just get rid of Rush, that things like Chocolate City, things like Next House is like, I don't know how many % Asian, things like that aren't gonna happen, they are gonna happen. You know, people are still gonna be more comfortable with people that they know, with faces that they recognize.
I was just gonna say, I live in Newhouse, and I'm a senior, and I have to admit that I only know like 3 or 4 people that aren't black at MIT, but I think even though that's the case, I'm still glad that I lived in Newhouse for my whole 4 years because of the support I received from my friends. And it's not that just black people, I could only be friends with black people, but it's that the probability of me getting along with those people and having less conflicts with those people is higher. You know, if the music they're playing really loud next door might disturb me, but it might be something I like at the same time. So, I mean, that's why I think it's still valuable, because these people have supported me. It's not like I'm the only token black person there, you know, where they're like, oh, what does the black girl think about this or that, you know, and not really accepting me into the community.
I think that there needs to be a balance between the support structure of having a living group like Chocolate City or like a Next House and so forth and so on, and then broadening the perceptions of understanding other people's races and other people's cultures. I lived in Newhouse for 3 years. We were right next door to Chocolate City. I could go home whenever I want. It didn't hamper me from getting to know anybody else of any other race. So to even look at Chocolate City as an entity that says that, hey, we are exclusive group, we do not allow anybody else in, et cetera, to even look at Chocolate City in that fashion would be incorrect, because there have been many people who have come through Chocolate City's way, who have, and I'm not, you know, just defending Chocolate City, I'm talking about just any living group. There's many people who have, I've walked in Next House and talked to Asian folk. So it doesn't stop me. I think what you know what I'm saying? Well, you know what I'm saying? So it doesn't stop me. It doesn't stop me, and I know that sounded funny, but what I'm saying is, it doesn't stop me from trying to interact with different people just because I have a living group I can call home, you know? I think we need to distinguish between preference, prejudice, and racism.
At MIT, you can live in an environment where you really don't have to interact with any other cultures. You can open the technique, you can look through each, you know, yearbook, and you can see that at MIT that there is a great deal of segregation by race within the housing system. MIT has a policy, or not policy, but a set of a way of bringing people to campus that brings this about. Something, it's not just RO, it starts before that. MIT has programs like Interphase. What happens at Interphase, a lot of minority students come up early. The other students in the program who they spend most of their time with, who they get to know, are also minorities. And when RO rolls around and everyone has 3 days of confusion, a lot of students try to stay with the people that they're comfortable with. RO is a very uncomfortable time. It's very stressful. A lot of things are going around, and if you already know 30, 40 people, odds are you spend a lot of time talking with them.
What I've noticed is that whenever we talk about the issue of diversifying people or getting people to mix together, people always focus on taking those living situations in those groups and breaking them up within the majority, quote unquote, white culture. I remember talking with one of my white friends, having lunch with him, and he says, "Tell me, how come, every time I come into Lab, all you blacks, y'all sit together? Why is that, So then I says to him, well, I have a question for you. Who did you have dinner with last night? My frat brothers. Okay. Well, what are some of the things that you have in common with your frat? Well, we like music. We have this certain kind of music. We love Star Trek. So I was like, well, if you have something in common with them and you decided to sit with them because you had something in common, what makes that paradigm any different from the paradigm of black folks sitting together, Latino folks sitting together? If Latino folks sit together and speak Spanish to each other and you don't know Spanish, then maybe, just maybe, why would you want to go and break that group up? They feel comfortable speaking Spanish with each other, understanding each other, loving each other in that way. If black folk, we're talking about rap music, or if we're talking about some issue, we're talking about Farrakhan, or we're talking about some issue that affects us, and we're sitting down discussing it, why would you want to break that group up if this is a family meeting? And it wasn't until after that point in time that he got the picture, that he understood that people in many senses sit with each other and interact with each other because of their commonalities. Now, what he has done is taken himself out of his own comfort zone and says, well, teach me a little bit more about this culture. I'll say, well, let me introduce you to one of my friends. You see, but there's a level of humility that he had. And that level of humility inspired me to even want to encourage that same level of humility myself, to want to learn about other cultures. But unless you have that level of humility, how would we ever expect the races to come together? And why must we expect those who are trying to make a home for themselves to break up? That is highly illogical.
I spent, my whole life, except for 4 years, which I feel were very, very important. Almost my whole life was spent, in private school around, very few black people, always being, the one black person in my class, or, in the honors classes at least, and especially AP classes, and that kind of thing around, white people. If you talk about, a diverse education, or, me being exposed to, people of other cultures, I've been bombarded with that my entire lifetime. There is not very much of an opportunity for me to be in, live around a group of, all black people. It's just, it didn't exist before, right? And considering the fact that it didn't exist before, this is basically the only time I'm gonna have.
One thing that I heard in common here, it's that that MIT is sort of out of balance, okay? So people are saying, oh, getting rid of RO is not gonna help it. Absolutely, I would think that getting rid of RO and just grabbing everybody and putting them in there, and say, okay, confront each other without having an environment where confrontation because confrontation can be good, right? I mean, confrontation don't like this, because I think that in an aspect we are confronting each other here, confronting each other's views and so on in a respectful manner. But if you just put him there and say, okay, 20%, deal with each other, I think that that's wrong. I think that also saying, okay, you guys decide without any other things around already set up, so that what the housing is not doing, other things can do. Also, that's not being done. Also, the balance between personal responsibility and an institute responsibility, right? I mean, when students look and see that the faculty, it's all white and it's mostly men, right? Why do they have to care about diversity? The campus doesn't, obviously, academia doesn't. So why do I have to care about that? So I think that to say that, oh, it's only falls in the students, I think that that's also wrong. I think that we have to keep balance. I think that the administration has to do some things. I think that's, when I say MIT has done some things wrong, MIT is not just administration, it's also the student body.
Yeah, I really wanted to address this whole comfort thing, because we keep coming back to it, how we want to live with people who we're comfortable with. And I think it's a notion that really ought to be challenged. Not that there isn't a lot of truth in it, but to really challenge the notion that color defines who we're comfortable with. Particularly if you come here and you're 18 and you don't know about other people. Yeah, you might have gone to high school with them. The majority of people here of color did not go to schools of mostly color. Not from my experience. All the people I knew went to mostly majority white high schools. And personally, being from San Francisco, I had a really diverse high school. But it wasn't majority black, it wasn't majority Hispanic, anything like that. The majority was still white. And I think if you haven't gotten to know somebody on an adult level, then you don't know whether you're comfortable with them. And just because the people who you knew in high school, back home, you weren't comfortable with them, that doesn't mean that all white people you aren't comfortable with them or anything like that. That what I think is that we have a very exceptional population here. There's a lot of students with really interesting qualities that you haven't been exposed to. There weren't that many people at my high school who had qualities of ambition and interest in the world that the people I knew here had. And I think it's a whole different ball game that you really need to get to know people and be in environments where that's really fostered.
Since I've been at MIT, the same stupid little things happen to me all the time. And we talked about, some of the seniors that were on that tape 3 years ago talked about this, so obviously not a lot has changed. But the same stupid things that happen where I become the exception and the one nice guy in a sea of badness, or I become just the exception to the rule, that I'm no longer comfortable with that, because I don't need that aggravation in my day anymore. I don't need to go to Baker and have someone, have 3 white people walk right through the door and then, slam the door on me and make me call the desk when the desk worker sees me standing there. I don't need to go to Baker for that. I don't need that frustration in my life anymore. And that's why I'm not comfortable going out anymore, because it's just extra aggravation that MIT is hard enough. I don't need to put myself in situations that are going to make it any harder for me.
I really appreciated that I felt like MIT treated us like adults. The fact is that when you come here, you're not an adult. You're 18, for the most part, not everybody, but but people in general are young, okay, and you're very impressionable. I don't think that just getting rid of RO would make the difference. I think that the living groups ought to be places that foster interaction, all of them, that foster interaction and expect interaction and really have things to promote that.
I'm an immigrant, and so people ask me, where are you from? And I say I'm from LA, and then they say, where are you from before? And I say Florida. And then they say, well, where you were born? And I'm like, okay, I was born in Bangkok, fine, And then they ask me, when are you going back? And it's really hard because I go to Thailand a lot because my dad lives there now, but he just moved back because I guess he felt the frustration of not being able to assimilate. And that's why he decided to go back, and he's living there now. And I don't feel like I have a sense of place here. If I go to Thailand, I don't fit there. I don't fit there at all. People see me on the street and they're like, that's an American. Or they're like, that's just not a Thai person. If I'm sitting down, I'm not saying anything, then it's fine. I look Thai. And I can get away. But as soon as I open my mouth, as soon as I walk, as soon as they see how I wear my clothes, anything, they're just like, it's not a Thai person. And I come here, and I'm not an American. And I think that's a thing I talk to a lot of other Asian Americans about, is about having no sense of place. There's nowhere that you call home.